there's a disruption via genetics at the core of interleukin-6 levels, which leads to melatonin levels decreasing. Sleep is poor. So then the way you feel in the morning, your executive functioning, your ability to concentrate, your ability to focus, all goes down. And that if you start to fix some of these things as part of the puzzle, that you can get hopefully some improvement.
This is Generation Health. We bring you the latest news, cutting-edge research, and time-tested best practices, helping you live a longer, healthier life. Sitting across from me, Mr. Joey DiMatteo, PharmD, board-certified clinical nutritionist. How are you?
Doing great today. How are you?
I'm good.
Got some new facial hair. I'm liking that.
It's true. Well, we had an extra week off, so I could play with it a little bit.
I like it.
Yeah. Behind mic number 3, Josiah Schweinberg, engineer extraordinaire. How are you?
Doing good.
What nobody can see is that Batman has been propped up, an action figure, and is keeping watch over the proceedings. There you go.
He's disappointed.
Well, and now you're putting him on, so now the camera's shaking. Yeah, thank you. All right. That's enough. That's enough.
He's good. I'm glad he's there.
Joey, how's life?
Good, man.
Yeah,
really good. No complaints. Busy.
Yeah.
But a good busy. Work's a good busy. Family life, the young kids is a good busy. So what about you?
Chaotic in the extreme.
Chaotic.
One of my children is engaged to be married. So that's a big deal. And
congratulations, man. That's fantastic. I thought that's where you were going with that prompting.
I wasn't, but I appreciate that you gave that to me. I was just killing time trying to get my brain jump started here. But yes, my son is engaged, and that's crazy. Thank you. Thank you very much. Again, people can't hear it, but Josiah just played an applauding sound effect. All right.
Well timed.
Yep.
Engineering extraordinaire. Thank you.
Joey, we've got this great article in a study from Psychiatry Research Communications. Again, one of my favorite publications. The headline says, Genetic Analysis Reveals Role of Melatonin in ADHD Symptom Severity. New research published in Psychiatry Research Communications suggests that the hormone melatonin may be closely linked to the severity of attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, or ADHD, symptoms in children. A study led by Hamamatsu University School of Medicine found that genetic variations affecting melatonin production could contribute to ADHD symptoms, particularly through disrupted sleep patterns. These findings highlight the potential benefits of healthy sleep routines in managing ADHD symptoms. I'll tell you what, I am feeling that right now because I did not sleep well at all last night, and my focus has been atrocious today. You read the actual research and
yes,
the studies. Tell me more.
So yeah, I mean, it seemed like a good study to at least look into. And I think once I did that, I even got more out of it than I thought, or more than what the headline would lead you to believe. So melatonin is the focus of the article, and it's the headline. But there's a second conclusion in the study, which involves a major inflammatory regulating cytokine. Cytokines are basically just signaling proteins.
Okay.
Interleukin-6.
Okay.
So they drew some pretty interesting conclusions and links to that as well. Again, this is a study that's looking back. You know, that it's not randomized, controlled trial, double blind, all that. So there's only so much information that you can gain. But I always think of it the way these studies are often a springboard to doing those types of studies and seeing where an intervention would come into play. But this is just evaluating data that's already out there.
Okay. All right. So tell me, what did they do? You said they were looking back. What are the conclusions? What do we got?
So they looked at, so total ends up being over 30,000. So they looked at a couple different databases, and they measured melatonin levels, okay? Directly measuring melatonin is a very difficult thing to do because it cycles as part of our circadian rhythm.
Yeah, it goes up and down throughout the day.
So I think they did, from a study structure standpoint, they did a pretty smart thing, and they studied the metabolite. So they studied 6-hydroxymelatonin, which is excreted. So they were able to, by that metabolite, look and deduce the levels that would have been active. They tested those in the morning. So what they were able to find is a significant correlation, remember this is a correlative study, between genetic markers associated with melatonin secretion, okay, and ADHD symptoms in children. So again, they went a few levels. It's not just the melatonin level and the metabolite level. They then drew and analyzed the genetic markers. This was a big database of information. So they took it multiple levels. Again, that's why where I said, the headline's good, but then what they actually did and what else you can garner from it, I thought was pretty impressive.
Yeah.
Again, they found a significant correlation, okay, in ADHD, particularly those related to inattention. So less on the hyperactivity side of things. They found that children with ADHD symptoms are more prone to circadian rhythm disturbances that they got, by analyzing their melatonin levels.
Right.
Okay. And, ADD is an outdated term. We use ADHD now, but this is a spectrum that we're looking at. We're looking at really a set of symptoms. Some people are undiagnosed, but still have some of these symptoms. So I think there's value kind of for anybody who has any of these types of symptoms. But the symptoms related to focusing difficulties, forgetfulness, easily distracted, more so versus the restlessness or excess energy or impulsivity. They found that within those subtypes, which are again predominantly inattentive, predominantly hyperactive or impulsive, or a combination, they found that the inattentive impact of melatonin secretion had more correlation between the symptomology and the levels.
Okay.
We've known for a long time that ADHD is associated with low levels of dopamine and norepinephrine in the frontal cortex of the brain. Okay.
Yes. Yep.
So that is why stimulants work, because stimulants, they increase particularly both dopamine and norepinephrine, but especially norepinephrine. They increase those, so they kind of fix that imbalance. Okay. The link with melatonin is relatively new. In particular, at this scale. Again, we've talked about, smaller studies that are correlative in nature, then lead to larger ones like this, which then hopefully can lead to some interventions.
Yeah.
But they were able to, again, draw a very strong link between low melatonin levels and particularly the inattentive subtype of ADHD. What they also found, though, and what they evaluated is back to interleukin 6, which again is a cytokine, which are just signaling proteins. They're involved in regulating inflammation in the body. Okay, so that's everything from your immune system with a link to autoimmune conditions, tissue regeneration when there's an injury or exercise, metabolism, red blood cell production. So interleukin 6 has a lot of roles. They've even found elevated levels. Increased risk of cancer, cardiovascular disease, diabetes, neurological conditions, ADHD, of course, but also anxiety and depression. So we know that elevated levels are associated with those conditions. They found that in children with the most severe ADHD symptoms and with also the reduced melatonin secretion, where they found that correlation, they also found elevated levels of interleukin 6. Okay, so they began to take a look at what the role of interleukin 6 is in melatonin secretion, and a lot of it is a big kind of cycle. Chicken or egg, right?
Sure.
So you've got some ADHD symptoms. Maybe you're not sleeping well because of those, because you're secreting low melatonin, but then you're not sleeping well, so those symptoms are exacerbated. So anytime we talk about ADHD, and I think we often, try to link that there's not one solution to these problems. It's not like, well,
Yes.
you know what? I tried this, I tried that, but melatonin now is my answer. It's really about you're piecing together a realistic puzzle to hopefully get some long-term benefits.
Yeah. Yeah. We are classic fence sitters, milk toast right in the middle, taking all the angles.
Yeah. So they found several pathways involving interleukin 6 and with, again, the melatonin secretion deficit and an increase in ADHD symptoms. Okay. So what I found interesting here, because again, you're kind of starting at the ground level. Well, okay, we're talking about genetics. So we know there's some genetic predisposition.
Yep.
What can you do about that? All right. So my interleukin 6 is elevated. What can I do about that? That's where you start to, A, kind of hypothesize what you can do, and then B, move forward eventually in a study. So what also increases interleukin 6? Excess sugar consumption. What else? Processed food.
Yep.
So you've found a link that interleukin 6 elevation, and it may be genetic. You may say, well, I can't control that, but what can you control?
Right.
Fuel to the fire.
Yep.
So you've got potentially an ADHD diagnosis. This is mainly about children, but there's clear parallels in adult ADHD as well. So there's already genetic predisposition to interleukin 6 elevation. Now you're throwing in some excess sugar, you're throwing in processed foods, and you're fanning the flames of that situation.
Yeah.
So again, that's why I really found this element that was kind of buried below the headline to be critical in terms of, well, what do I do with this information? So the most obvious thing is avoiding those types of foods related to interleukin 6. But back kind of to the headline of melatonin, there are smaller scale studies where intervention with melatonin certainly has a role and has shown to improve ADHD symptoms. Again, more on the inattentive side.
Right.
And then the other key thing to understand too is that our circadian rhythm is more than just sleep.
Yeah.
It also controls hunger. It controls emotion regulation. It controls a lot of executive functions like working memory, which is essentially just like your mental scratch pad. It's that information that you need. You're reading something and what happened at the beginning of the paragraph, those kind of things, problem solving. So all of those also executive functions are affected by a poorly functioning circadian rhythm. It's not just sleep. And then what they also found is that there can be, especially in children, because I know it from my own life, it's like anything that's going on with your child, there's a part of you that like wants an answer. You start reading things, you start looking things up. There's more, just more out there in terms of diagnosis and interventions.
Yep.
And sleep, just going back to sleep, like even if it's not pure ADHD, they found an overdiagnosis of ADHD in people and children who go to bed very late, who have screens on very late. Because what's critical to kind of allow the body to go into melatonin production, for the pineal gland to go into melatonin production, has to do with light. It's a very, very physical, visceral situation where having those screens, especially the intensity of the screens that we have, TVs, phones right in your face. So you end up really delaying the ability of the child who already probably doesn't have the ability maybe to kind of unwind without, I know in my life, without the screen. That's what we think is unwinding them. But if it's a bedtime thing, it's setting them up for even just symptomology, even if it's not an official diagnosis, let alone if the actual genetic issues and if a diagnosis is warranted, you're again fanning the flames.
Yep.
Screens till 9, 10 o'clock potentially, sugar during the day.
Yep.
Processed foods during the day, and now look, it's genes, I can't do anything about it. Or it's just melatonin. No, it's this whole kind of paradigm of where interleukin 6 is involved in your circadian rhythm and the secretion of melatonin, which may be functioning fine, may not be, but then the screens throw a wrench into things.
I love this. This is, I did not read in depth all this stuff. It is so funny because this is literally exactly what I found in my own life. Is that when I cut out things like sugar and hyper-processed carbohydrates, my own ability to focus went up dramatically as the inflammation went down. And it was based on stuff I heard your dad saying, talking about seizures and other neurological disorders being an inflammatory response. That's when I started changing how I was eating, had a major impact, really radically helped me, which then helped me to sleep more regularly. Yeah. Which also helped everything else.
That's awesome. I'm sure you did some sleep routine, kind of know what those basics are regarding lights and things like that.
Yep.
And I think too, like just to kind of to tie in some of this is, our genes are obviously critical in determining, but what we kind of forget is that our genes aren't just circulating in our blood, doing all these different activities. Right. Genes have their effect ultimately via some middleman in your body, via some mechanism in the middle. And what they've again found is whether it's a neurotransmitter, which is the most obvious one, such as in ADHD, you've got depleted and decreased levels of dopamine and norepinephrine, but the cytokines as well. So you may have this genetic predisposition may just lead your cytokines to function a certain way. Okay, so it's critical to understand. So what goes on at the genetic level? How does it manifest in a child that's not paying attention during the day? There are steps along the way. Some of them just, again, have to do with the cytokine release. Then the environmental factors come in with, am I helping to decrease these, or am I increasing this expression?
Right.
So, so when I just looked up what increases interleukin 6, and of course, it was the things I mentioned. There's also, other environmental factors, but those, are hard to help. But our diet, obviously, with the sugar and the processed food, but exercise.
Yeah.
So I said, okay, so I'm looking up, and just at a glance, it says exercise increases interleukin 6. So you're like, wait, we're always pro-exercise, all these benefits. So the way it works, though, one level deeper, yes, interleukin 6 is elevated short term when you exercise. There's an inflammatory response. You're putting some stress on your body. So there is an initial spike. However, they did a study that over time, they did a baseline sedentary lifestyle group cohort. Okay, measured their morning just normal interleukin 6 levels, got them on a workout routine, and later measured their baseline levels. So not an hour after they work out, of course, it's going to be elevated. They all saw decreased levels of baseline interleukin 6, because essentially the interleukin 6 elevation that you get from a processed food or from sugar, that's exogenous. That's some stimulus to your body, like, hey, what's going on? Those are largely unnatural substances, especially in those amounts.
Yeah.
But in your body, that's endogenous. That's a physiological response. Your skeletal muscle secretes interleukin 6 when you exercise. So the response, exercise helps your body to regulate interleukin 6. So yeah, you can look at the quick headline of interleukin 6 elevates it, and it does in the short term. But overall, because it's a natural process, that it ends up decreasing, and they've done studies to show that it decreases at the baseline levels. Not to mention, interleukin 6 is elevated in overweight and obese people. So again, the big circle here. But then what happens when you start to exercise, typically, and you start to cut out excess sugar, and you start to cut out processed foods? Now you're losing weight, you're lowering your interleukin 6 just by the weight loss, let alone the other mechanism that we talked about, because that study was done on the short term. This was not, years and excess weight loss. It was just short-term exercise routine for a few weeks. What's the baseline interleukin 6 level? So the link back to exercise, I thought, was really interesting too. Again, when you try to look at the mechanisms of how these things are occurring in the body.
I love it. That is so fantastic.
Yeah, and I think what was good about the study, in addition to all the other things we've mentioned, is in adults. So now we're taking it kind of lifelong. They did a large study of adults with ADHD. They found that 60% of these individuals reported some type of sleep disorder. 36% have had trouble falling asleep. 31% pure insomnia. 29% restless leg or some other periodic limb movement disorder, which can be related to the low dopamine. So again, when you're just kind of linking in what the lifelong process is here with that. So I know I keep kind of tying stuff together, but will sleep cure all of that and fix all of that? No. But what it does is, like you talked about in your own life, it's a critical piece to the puzzle. So if we can see that some melatonin intervention, and there are smaller studies, that melatonin intervention does decrease some of the symptomatology of ADHD and the inattentive type, it's just good to see kind of things progress in that way, that even in adulthood, it's bad in the sense of what's going on,
right,
but the link that this is not just a child thing. There's a disruption via genetics at the core of interleukin 6 levels, which leads to melatonin levels decreasing. Sleep is poor, so then the way you feel in the morning, your executive functioning, your ability to concentrate, your ability to focus, all goes down. And that if you start to fix some of these things as part of the puzzle, that you can get hopefully some improvement.
Get some real traction. That's fantastic. We have some wonderful products that have melatonin. You want to talk about those for a second?
Yeah. So I think particularly if you're dealing with sleep onset, and it's a little less, I think, relevant in a child. With a child, I would stick straight melatonin. You could do some magnesium or something in addition, but if you're not only experiencing maybe some of the ADHD manifestation, I know in my son, He's not diagnosable, but like there's something going on there. And this really has helped me even like with our screen time at night and things like that. But I think with a child, if it's not so much falling asleep that's the problem, but I would start with just melatonin alone. You can add some magnesium and add some other things if that's warranted. But there are some herbs and stuff in something like essential sleep that I probably wouldn't go to unless they get a little older, unless, the sleep latency is really the issue. In an adult, if you're dealing with these things, I would go straight to essential sleep. It has 3 milligrams of melatonin. I know we've talked about it a lot, but it has multiple different avenues via which it calms the brain, calms some of the more overactive neurotransmitters, has just glycine and things that are just calming and increase the more calming neurotransmitters like 5-HTP for serotonin, GABA. So it's working multiple different ways. Wouldn't go there with a kid, until they get a little older, like I said. But I think an adult, I would definitely recommend it. And, again, it's back to the overall. It doesn't have to be ADHD. You could have difficulty concentrating because you're up too late because you eat too much sugar. All those things kind of coming into play. So if you help fix some of the sleep, maybe that can even just some of the manifestations, some of the symptoms that are not diagnosed as ADHD can help you deal with those.
Yeah, absolutely. I think anybody can speak to a poor night of sleep or two can really leave you a wreck when it comes to focus.
Definitely.
So anything we can do to get that consistent is a good idea. Very cool. Thank you, Joey. I'm really glad you parsed that out for me. I'm going to send you some other things I'd like you to read, starting with,
we'll do a couple of these. I really like this topic. And like I said, you have dealt with some of the things personally, like you mentioned. I maybe should be dealing with them more in my own life. Definitely an avenue maybe to start with my oldest son. So this sometimes when they hit home, it makes some of the reading and some of the preparation go a little more smooth and feel a little more practical.
Absolutely. Dante, I am very pleased that we are doing this. I love our fitness and nutrition products. I use the protein, I use the creatine, and now we are going to have a pre-workout. Tell me about it. What is a pre-workout? Who needs a pre-workout?
Yeah, I'm equally excited about this one as it's, these sort of products are near and dear to my heart. A pre-workout is something that plays into the ritual of exercising. So you got to mix up your little shake before you go off to run or before you go to the gym. And besides the, creatine products, maybe a handful of others over the years, there hasn't really been anything quite like this one. Mm-hmm. Very similar to other products that I've tried from other good companies. And so excited to introduce this, as this is something that I feel excited talking about it. It's something that I am currently taking. So it's a good one. And so we'll hammer out some of these ingredients and why I think it is a benefit if you are somebody looking to try and elevate their workouts.
Okay, cool. So who is using this? This is pre-workout. So presumably people who are going to work out.
Exactly. So if you're somebody who is just starting to exercise, who maybe you already have a little bit of a caffeine tolerance, and you're looking for a pre-workout that does contain a stimulant. A stimulant in this case, caffeine or some sort of caffeine derivative. So that's the general market that might alienate a lot of people right off the bat. But as we know, sort of the best, most effective pre-workout at this point is still good old-fashioned caffeine. So if you're somebody who's happy with your cup of coffee, that's certainly fine too. We love that as well.
Yep.
But this one has a little more in the way of nutrients specific to, muscle endurance, muscle strength, size, etc. So that's a huge part of it.
Okay. So tell me about the ingredients. What do we got?
So the first ingredient is this trademarked Maltor or taurine L-malic acid. There's 5,000 milligrams in this in a 2-scoop serving. And it supports everything from cardiovascular function to your central nervous system. And in the context of exercise here, you're looking at mainly, trying to reduce the damage that occurs from muscles, help aid in recovery. Malic acid, on the other hand, it's found naturally in fruits and is important in our body's natural energy production cycle or the Krebs cycle. And so, while the benefits of this directly affecting exercise is sparse, this helps more or less to enhance the ingredient that it's paired with and other ingredients. The other big one is carnosine or beta-alanine. Carnosine is sort of the industry standard kind of trademarked form of beta-alanine. There are 3,200 milligrams in this 2-scoop serving, and is very well researched. The main goal here is to boost the muscle's carnosine levels. Carnosine essentially functions as a buffer, an intracellular buffer, to help neutralize or offset the effects of the hydrogen ions, which tend to accumulate during exercise, especially high intensity exercise. And it's sort of the buildup of these ions that really contribute to the burn or that fatigue that you start to feel.
Okay.
And so by limiting this, you're hoping to maintain a better, pH balance at the level of the muscle and allow them to continue to work better. So if you're somebody looking to improve exercise capacity, especially if it's a little more on the higher intensity end, I think this is kind of like a no-brainer. It's in a million different pre-workout products. This is a lot of times what people attribute maybe some of like the tingliness to. So some hate that, some love it. It's nothing to worry about. It's kind of just is what it is. Again, there's 3,200 milligrams here, right within the kind of effective dose. There are products that have it up to double that. So I personally am somebody who I do add a little extra add a little extra beta-alanine supplementally. It's more my preference at this time, the higher intensity stuff. So that's a really important one. So moving on, we're looking at the nitric oxide component of this. And the main star of the formulation is the L-citrulline malate. So there's 6,000 milligrams or 6 grams in the 2-scoop serving. L-citrulline is converted to L-arginine in the body, which then leads to the production of nitric oxide. Nitric oxide is a powerful vasodilator, relaxes the blood vessels, improves blood flow. This can help people experience more of a pump potentially, and also just help clear out metabolic waste as you again improve the flow of blood in circulation. Evidence also suggests that because of this, you can reduce muscle soreness. You can get a slight boost in endurance. So there is some solid evidence behind behind this amino acid. Now, the other thing here too, there are products that have historically had less than this in it. 6 grams or 6,000 milligrams is a good dose. We have products that contain just L-citrulline in it. You can go upwards of 8 grams or more a day. There's a really popular study that has individuals taking up to 10 grams, I believe.
Wow.
And so, most of these doses kind of in this product have you somewhere in that sweet spot, which I like. So if you're somebody who you're really into this kind of stuff and you want to add more, you sometimes can. Or if you're good with the 1-2 scoop thing, then you have plenty in here to at least be effective, but with room for a higher ceiling if you feel so inclined. Mm-hmm. Exactly. So the next portion of this nitric oxide component is the beetroot powder.
Okay.
There's 300 milligrams in the serving. Beetroot naturally is high in nitrates. So like L-citrulline helps your body convert into nitric oxide. So this process is all beneficial for your cardiovascular health, I'm sure you might imagine.
Yeah.
And also just the oxygen efficiency during exercise. So you can ultimately, hopefully perform the same level of exercise, the same level of work, which in the presence of less oxygen, theoretically, extending your performance, extending your endurance.
Yep.
So 300 milligrams is a nice add. Now this is another example where there is the potential of benefit for some higher doses, but this certainly gets you in the door. The next part of this, which will be the most controversial, is the stimulant portion or the energy or focus blend.
Okay.
Really, really interesting to me. And I was a skeptic at first because they use, instead of just regular caffeine, what's being used here is the Infinity paraxanthine.
Okay.
So Infinity is the trademarked, form
Sure.
of this particular molecule, more or less. There's 200 milligrams in a serving. And what happens is when you ingest caffeine, your body metabolizes it, goes through the whole extensive liver metabolism, and then it's ultimately broken down into three main byproducts. You have paraxanthine, which is what's in this product. It's about 70 to 80%.
Okay.
There's theobromine, and there's also theophylline. So the different effects that people can experience from caffeine are largely due to how quickly or just how efficiently their bodies are metabolizing these various components. So by theoretically providing somebody with just one portion of that, the paraxanthine, the thought is that you control more of what,
the desired outcome.
Yes. So you're theoretically getting a cleaner version of caffeine. Now, even though this is what's in our product, I'm completely cool with regular old-fashioned caffeine.
Yes.
If there was just regular caffeine in here, that's great. I just think this is interesting. It does the job. If somebody's really apprehensive about the stimulant, aspect of caffeine, this is a possible alternative. And so that's what I like about it.
Very cool.
As we all know, caffeine is a central nervous system stimulant. It aims to boost alertness, focus, arousal around performance, and also really kind of reduce the perception of how hard you're exercising. So it just hypes you up and, just really sets the tone. Exactly. 200 milligrams in the 2 scoops is definitely what you'd get from a pretty strong cup or 2 of coffee. So keep that in mind. Again, different tolerances will vary. Just looking at caffeine, let alone when now you're trying something even a little bit different than caffeine.
Right.
And then there's a little bit of B12. There is some cocoa bean extract in here as well. The other aspect I wanted to highlight is the small little electrolyte blend that's in here. Magnesium, chloride, sodium, and potassium. So these are all, critical components to hydration. Most people will not need this.
Right.
But if you are working out pretty intensely, if you are in very hot environments, it was 90 plus degrees in Pittsburgh at moments this summer.
Yep.
And if you exercise in a gym that doesn't have AC, there's certainly a good strong argument to be made for the use of electrolytes. So you won't have to add any additional salt, nothing crazy that's already in here in very moderate dosing, and kind of just rounds out what I think is a very good baseline stimulant containing pre-workout product.
Love it. I love it. And what does it taste like?
It's got a little sourness to it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's tangy.
It's almost like a
sour watermelon or something.
Yes, exactly.
I'm so excited.
Yeah. It doesn't taste bad. And just, knock it out before you head off to your workout.
We're recording this just before it's officially online available. So I've only tried it the once, but I can't wait.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'm going to enjoy some here in a little bit.
That sounds like a really good idea. Awesome. Dante, thank you so much. Go get some. It's available on our website, askjoedimatteo.com. That's askjoedimatteo.com. That is it for us this week. If you have a question you would like answered, please email us, questions@askjoedimatteo.com. That's questions@askjoedimatteo.com. That's also the website where you can find these fantastic products we were talking about, Essential Sleep, Melatonin, bunch of other great stuff there, all on our website, askjoedimatteo.com. You can sign up for our newsletter there, find out about sales, find out about articles and other videos that we're posting on there. What else? Oh, the original show, Ask the Pharmacist with Joe DiMatteo, is there on our website, askjoedimatteo.com. Big thanks as ever to all the fine folks that make this happen. And if you learned something, the biggest thing you can do to help us is to share this show, share the segment or the show with someone that needs to hear it. That is phenomenally helpful. Alternatively, you can just give it a thumbs up or a 5-star rating. We like those too. Any referenced studies will be available down below in the comments section. Always available. We want you to do your own research. And I think that's it. Yeah, that's it from all of us, including Batman. Have a fantastic week. We'll talk to you next time.